Good morning, Caitlin. Can you hear me? Caitlin, can you hear me? I think you're muted. I'm trying to unmute you. Can you hear me now?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. You looked like you were mute there for a little bit.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, we'll give others a few minutes, couple, 2-3 more minutes to get in. I only had one participant for the earlier meeting.
Really?
Yeah. How are you
Wow.
doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Is everybody in your family or friends, they're all healthy, I hope?
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be hitting West Virginia quite nearly as bad as some other areas anyway.
Yeah, so far, no, not really.
Yeah, which is good for us. Okay, let's see if anybody else is in the waiting room. Don't see them just yet anyway. It's you and me. So how are your other classes going, Caitlin?
They're going pretty well.
Are you having virtual meetings of some sort in most of them, or?
Yeah, the only one that I'm not is theater, though. So,
Is what?
is theater, my theater class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. It's been a challenge, but it seems
Yeah.
to be going okay anyway. It's not my favorite way to teach, nor my favorite way to learn, but we don't have a lot of choice this time around.
Yeah.
So let me exit full screen again. Still not seeing anybody wanting to come in yet. Yeah, Daphne was in the earlier one, but she really didn't have much in the way of questions. We talked for probably 10 minutes and that was it. Do you have some specific questions?
I'm probably just gonna look and see if I have anything specific, but I don't think so.
The study guide corresponds very closely with the quiz.
Okay. Yeah, I started on that last night. There was just a lot of homework I had to do, so I didn't have a chance to really do much of it.
Sure. Well, and you have all day tomorrow to take the quiz.
Yeah.
It opens at 8 and closes at 11:55 p.m. So
Okay, that's not bad.
Get on it right first thing in the morning either.
Mhm.
Have you taken quizzes online before this course?
Yeah, a few times I have.
Oh, okay. So you've had some online learning.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Not much though.
Well, I guess all the summer courses are going to be, well, all the summer one courses are going to be online, and maybe even summer two is going to be online. I'm hearing. Well, I'm still not seeing anybody in the waiting room, so why don't we just go ahead? If you've got a question or you want some clarification, ask me. I'm recording the meeting anyway, so I'll post
Okay.
it on the YouTube
I'm
channel.
trying to look for something
Daphne,
that I'm not sure.
Daphne was asking me, I'm going to let everybody know at 10 o'clock that I've got the first 2 class meetings on Zoom uploaded to my YouTube channel now.
Okay. I mean, I don't really have anything else with like the voice stuff disorders because I watched all of those videos last night. I guess like what points in that chapter 6 video with the Chas Petrella thing, like what points will it touch on, I guess?
It will, the items on that, Caitlin, will primarily check whether or not you watched the video and paid attention.
Okay. Yeah, because I started watching it, I just hadn't gotten very far, maybe like 5 minutes in.
Yeah, it's
So,
about an hour, and you need to watch it all. There's at least
okay.
a couple of items on it.
Okay, yeah, I just have to finish watching it. I mean, I did start watching it, I just need to finish it.
Yeah, and it's, again, they're not questions that are real tiny, minute details. If you watch the video and like I say, pay attention to it, you'll be able to answer the items.
Okay.
Did you want me to talk about the different speech disorders?
Yeah.
Okay, the videos, the 3 first are, there's a number of different types of speech issues. So one is articulation, and there's actually 4 subtypes of articulation disorders, but I'm not going to get into those 4 subtypes. Okay.
Okay.
The main one that I talk about and is in the videos are substitutions, which you see in younger children. That's the wabbit for rabbit, TH for S, like thun, the thun is out. What used to just be called lisps, but those are substitutions because you're using a different sound in place of another sound. And that's what the videos of the 2 younger girls show. So that's the main focus on articulation disorders. The second and other important one for school is stuttering or fluency disorder. If you've read the book, there's also something called cluttering, but don't even worry about that. Okay, stuttering is if you watch the video on stuttering.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that pretty much says it all. You see what stuttering is and how it affects people and how to treat kids that have stuttering issues. So that's pretty straightforward. The last is voice disorders. I don't know. There was one with dysphonia where I think it's a 14-year-old girl, and yeah, that's more the type you would see in a school-age person.
Okay, like did it give like any like specific age range that it was for, or just like in general?
Voice disorders are pretty unusual in children and adolescents. And that might be the more common one, dysphonia, but articulation disorders and fluency disorders are by far what you see in terms of speech problems in school-age children.
Okay.
And then there was that one on singing, and that's where I kind of tried to put in my list of things that voice disorders usually occur in people that are a little bit older that have been abusing their voices for quite some time. Yelling a lot, singing. That's why I said coaches, cheerleaders, singers tend to be susceptible to voice disorders, not kids so much.
Okay. I think that's really all the questions I had, so I think I'm
Okay.
good.
And you understand the difference. You can have a speech disorder, you can have a language disorder. I just talked about the speech.
Mhm.
And in language disorders, there are expressive and, well, receptive and expressive.
Okay.
So receptive has to do with reading and listening. In other words, taking language in and processing it. And we certainly could see with like Adam Berg and Nathan in the Misunderstood's Mind video. Those are examples of also secondary language disorders. Their first issue is more a specific learning disability, but a lot of students with SLD have language disorders as well.
Okay.
So they have trouble with reading. They don't always process what they hear quickly or accurately. And then
Okay.
expressive is speaking and writing. Okay, but not, oops, here we got some more folks coming in. Hello, Aubrey, and who else is in there? Sue. Sue? Sophia, I didn't know you called yourself Sue. She can't hear me yet. So I'll finish up on this with you.
Okay.
The difference is with the expressive, it's not speech, not like an articulation. You know, it's their ability to explain it. Did you see the video with the 8-year-old girl and she's retelling the story that she
Yeah, I
read?
saw that one.
Yeah, that's a pretty good example of an expressive language disorder. It's not her ability to speak, it's her ability to express her thoughts orally.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, writing is the other part of expressive. So it makes sense. Receptive language disorders are listening, dealing with listening and processing what you hear and what you read. Expressive, how you express yourself orally and how you express yourself in writing. And like I say, a lot of younger children are seen by speech and language people for articulation and maybe fluency disorders. Language disorders tend to come out a little bit later on in school, and often they are secondary to a specific learning disability or an intellectual disability.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. How you doing, Sophia?
I'm well. How are you?
I was saying I didn't know you called yourself Sue.
Oh no, my computer broke, so I have to use my mom's.
Oh, okay. So she's the Sue. All right.
Yeah, she's Sue.
Aubrey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Well, Caitlin Wallace is here with us and Sophia, and I've just been answering some questions for Caitlin. So Aubrey, Sophia, do you have any specific questions?
I'm eating. Hold on.
Yeah, I could see that. Sophia, you have anything specific?
So, are the two types of language disorders primary and secondary, or is there something different?
Actually, I was just going over that with Caitlin. The two types really are expressive and receptive. So receptive has to do with processing what you hear. Nothing wrong with your hearing. We're not talking about being deaf or hard, just how well you process language or that's, through your hearing, and how well you process written language. Reading, how well do you take in language? Expressive is how well you can explain your thoughts or write your thoughts. So as I said to Caitlin, did you see the video with the little girl trying to retell the story?
Yeah.
That's a good example of an expressive language disorder. There's nothing wrong with her speech. And I think I even say in my description, you can see that she's replaying the book, the story in her mind, but her ability to tell you in a coherent, sequenced way is really impaired. So that is the two major types. Now, and Caitlin, I want to come back to one more speech issue here in a second. So primary and secondary. Primary language disorders would be probably like that little girl has. Secondary and often specific learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, emotional behavioral disorders, but especially SLD go hand in hand with language disorders. So a secondary language disorder is associated with the fact that you have a specific learning disability most often. Primary, and I know you all aren't familiar with IEPs, but essentially a primary speech and language disorder, you would most likely be on an IEP just for speech or language, like the little girls that have the articulation disorders. Secondary, you're probably on an IEP originally, like Nathan in Misunderstood Minds and Adam Berg. You should be on one for more a specific learning disability, but then the receptive and expressive language disorders are part of that whole business. Does that make sense? Caitlin, I also wanted to mention, I was talking with Caitlin about articulate the three types of speech disorders. Articulation, you don't need to know all four types. The main one I'm looking for is substitutions.
I thought there was only 3.
There are 4 types of articulation disorders.
Oh, never mind.
And they're talked about in the book, like substitutions, omissions, additions, and deletions.
Okay, I thought we were talking about something else.
Yeah. So what I'm really concerned with is the substitutions. And that's where you see children saying wabbit for rabbit, TH for S, like thun for son. I'm not concerned really with the omissions and omissions, additions and deletions, okay? The second type is fluency. Just focus on stuttering. If you watch the video, you'll be good there. Voice disorders. If you've seen the video with the 14-year-old girl and she can't almost produce speech, she's like, and she has the therapy to be able to make her speech audible. They're pretty unusual in children. Most voice disorders come with people that are older, as I said in my lecture, and I said, I think in my description of the videos, they tend to happen more with people that abuse their voices over time. Coaches, cheerleaders, singers, people that use their voice in loud ways, strain their voices, okay? The other type, there really are, in the book, there's a discussion pretty long about the different aspects of speech and language. Phonemes, morphemes, grapheme, syntax, semantics, and examples of all of those. One thing that is, I'm not worried that anybody knows all that stuff. What I do want you to be aware of are pragmatics, because that comes up in schools a lot. Pragmatics is not your ability to speak or even necessarily to express your thoughts. Okay, so it's not like a speech problem. And it isn't even necessarily a language problem, like you can't express yourself. It has to do with how you express yourself in social contexts. So it shows up in EBD quite a bit. It's students with emotional behavioral disorders, where they walk in and talk to their teacher like they're talking to, another kid that they're playing with or walking down the street with in their neighborhood. They're using 4-letter words and, so on and so forth. Other kids may use that exact same language, but they know to adjust their language, right? Because they're talking to a teacher. So they don't express themselves in the same way, they adjust it. I think I gave an example. If you go on a first date with somebody, the way you converse and talk is probably going to be different than if you're on the 10th date with somebody. You follow what I'm saying? That's pragmatics. It's also reading people's nonverbal messages. Like if you were talking to me and I was going, I'm not saying anything, but you're going to read. Well, obviously he doesn't think a whole lot about what I'm saying, right? All of that is pragmatics. And that comes up a lot with EBD students and with SLD students to some extent. We saw that with Lauren in Misunderstood Minds. Remember how they talked about the way she interacted? She'd interrupt kids, just barge into a conversation, or she'd yell at them, and was having trouble making friends because of pragmatics. And that can happen quite a bit. It's one way that students with disabilities can end up being kind of socially isolated, because their social pragmatics are so bad that people just don't want to communicate with them. Does that make sense? So I'm not worried about phonology, morphology, semantics, syntax, but pragmatics is a good thing to know because you run across it in everyday life. Like you may know somebody or have interacted with somebody that you don't know that well, but they get right up close to you and you kind of want to back off. Like, why are you invading my personal space? That's another example of pragmatics. Most people know, there's a kind of a comfort zone. You don't invade people's sort of bubble around them unless they invite you to. But there are other people who just completely ignore those kinds of pragmatic rules of conversation. Really, a lot of it just has to do with, can you carry on conversations appropriately? Okay, another example might be, I've seen this happen with SLD students quite a bit. You say, well, where are you from? West Virginia. What town? Weirton. Did you live there all your life? Yes. Did you go to Weirton High School? Uh-huh. No reciprocity, not like, where are you from? Where did you go? No explanation, just that's pragmatics. It's not speech. It's not that the person can't express themselves. They just aren't following kind of the social conventions of give and take in conversation. That makes sense to everybody? Okay. Aubrey, I'm going to unmute you. Yes, you're unmuted now.
Yeah, I was talking to our dog like in a baby voice, and I didn't want you guys to hear it.
You were talking to your dog in a baby voice. Well, everybody does, so I wouldn't be embarrassed by that. Most people talk to their dogs like they're children. So anyway, do you have any questions?
No, the only question was the 3 types of the speech, but you did that.
You mean the articulation, voice,
Yeah.
and stuttering, or fluency disorders? Okay.
The only other thing that I wasn't sure on is how children manage their fluency disorders.
Yeah. Well, they really need speech therapy. So the speech and language pathologist will try to catch the children early, and they will teach them strategies to help them be more fluent. If you go back and look at the video, or if you recall it real well, you will see that the people in the video that are a little bit older, like there's some teenage kids in there, and even a little bit older, upper elementary, you'll see that they aren't as disfluent as the younger children tend to be, because they've learned to compensate, they've learned how to adjust and be more fluent speakers. It's with the younger children where you really, that one boy, he's like, you can really see in his face he's struggling. And the girl who's like, she keeps repeating S before she finally gets the word out. But when you look at the older students, you can see their speech is more fluent. They don't block, which is the whole or that repetitive first sound of a word. They largely have managed that, and it's just through practice and knowing yourself and knowing some strategies. I've had a couple of I had a colleague a while back who was a professor and had stuttering disorder, which really was almost unnoticeable unless you picked up on the fact that when he was starting, just when he felt like he was going to stutter, his eyes would always go up, and he'd stop for a second, and then he would say whatever it was he wanted to say, but he didn't do the or all the real blocking. He just kind of would look up and take a couple of few seconds and then say what he wanted to say. So there is no real, nobody really knows what causes stuttering, and there is no single way, there's no cure for it or way to take care of it. It's just hard work with a speech and language person who's familiar with stuttering disorders. The two things as teachers really is to not put the person on the spot. Anxiety, tension, as you can imagine, often makes stuttering worse. And so if you just call on a student who stutters, out of the clear blue sky, they may be more likely to stutter than if they knew in advance you were going to call on them, or don't call on them at all if they're not comfortable talking. And the other is not filling in the blanks for them. Just whatever it takes for them to get it out, you wait for them to get it out. And, just you don't interrupt and try to say whatever it is you think they're saying. Those are kind of the general rules of thumb, and teaching other kids not to make fun of them. It's an interesting thing, not that this is something that's on the quiz, I'll be clear about that, but some people have suggested that stuttering has something to do with breathing and rhythm, in a sense, because People who stutter sometimes or often can sing without any disfluency at all. For whatever reason. There was a country singer, Mel Tillis. He's probably dead by now. He was around long before you all were listening. And I don't know if you listen to country music, but if you ever listen to a recording, a video of Mel Tillis talking, his stuttering is very clear. But when he sings, not a problem. It's just kind of one of those quirky things. Other questions? Oh, crap. Sorry, there's 3 more people waiting to get in. Hey, Audrey, you there? How long have you all been waiting? Serena, you there? Tia, I see you.
I've been waiting since like 9:30.
Oh, you should have emailed me. Did you email me and tell me you were waiting?
I didn't, no.
Okay. Well, I've been recording it so you can hear what we've talked about up to this point.
Okay.
All righty. So I'll go through those of you who are just joining, and I'm bad for that. I forget there's people waiting for me. So I looked up at the screen and all of a sudden there's everybody. Serena, you're still muted, it looks like, which maybe you want, and that's fine. Tia, do you have any specific questions?
The one about where it says, what do marked degree for a long period of time and under normal circumstances have to do with defining and identifying EPD in students?
Okay. In the video lecture, I explained this as well. So let's just take 5th graders, right? Take 5th grade boys. Well, 2 boys get in a fight one day over something and scuffle, and they get suspended for a day and their parents have to come in and so on. That's not an extraordinary thing, right? I mean, it's not something you expect people to do, but it's not real unusual. But if you have a 5th grader who's getting in fights every week or every other day over all kinds of, stuff, that's to a marked degree.
Okay.
Same way, and for a long period of time, and under normal circumstances. So, a fight once in a year is not going to raise a red flag to anybody for a 5th grader. Would say, one of them called one of them a bad name and he got mad, and there they went to scuffling with one another. But then you have another that he starts fighting with somebody because he said he didn't like the way they looked at him. Or, he makes up all kinds of reasons why he wants to fight with somebody. And he does that often. That's to a marked degree for a long period of time and under normal circumstances. Okay. And so those are more externalizing, right? Behaviors, acting out. Example of internalizing would be, we'll talk 5th graders again. A child loses her beloved grandmother. And so she suddenly doesn't talk much, and she's down, and she's not doing her work and not paying attention as much. And everybody knows, she's grieving. And so she's just not with it. And because those are really, her reactions are normal under those circumstances, right?
Yeah.
But then you have a child who's depressed and anxious each and every day, and there is no explanation other than they have a depression or anxiety disorder, and it's affecting their life all the time and for a long period of time. And there are no uh, like major environmental factors or triggers like a death in the family or something that would explain why a child might be checking out like that. So that's where the three come from. It really is getting at the fact that the behaviors of whether they're internalized or internalizing or externalizing behavior disorders, you see the same behaviors in virtually every human being. It's just you don't see them so pronounced and you don't see them for so long. And there's usually something you can point to that, indicates why they might be feeling that way. That makes sense?
Yeah.
That's kind of where that's coming from. All right, Sydney, how about you? I can just see your head. You look like a floating ghost or something. You got any specific questions? You're muted. I'm going to unmute you.
I don't have any certain
Okay.
questions I'm gonna ask right now.
Serena, you got any specific
There
questions?
were, I don't know what you guys went over so far, but there were a few that I couldn't
Okay.
really.
Well, I am recording it and I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel so you can start from the beginning and hear
Okay.
what I've talked about. So I've talked about the three different types of speech disorders, the different types of language disorders, and that was pretty much it. Tia's was really the first question about emotional behavior disorders. So fire away, Serena, if you have a specific question or two.
Let's see. Articulation disorders. I know on that one video, the girl was 3. So
Yeah.
would it be like toddlers?
Well, there's one video I show about, yes. So that's just an example. It is an example of the type of articulation order that I want you all to know about, which are substitutions. Not worried about omissions, deletions, or additions. Substitutions. I'm going to try to pick another word. How about whacked for rat or wane for rain? Those are substitutions. Substitute one sound for another sound. Those videos really illustrate the fact that whoever their parents or preschool teachers were picked up on that substitution and were concerned about it and got them to a speech and language pathologist who was familiar with childhood disorders. We all acquire speech at different rates. So we all substitute sounds, we all omit sounds, we all do all the things that people with speech disorders do, but our speech gets more and more mature until about age 4, 5, 6, 7, depending on the child, where their speech is adult-like. They can pretty much articulate everything the way anybody would. So articulation disorders tend to show up early on, yes. And if they're not treated early on, they'll persist. And the longer you wait to treat them, of course, the harder it is for the child to overcome it. That help?
Yeah.
Okay. You got another one? Well, let me ask Lacey. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Let me ask Lacey and Audrey. Do you all have any specific questions?
I don't. I was just coming in just to kind of listen and see if I could get any more information. So
Okay, Lacey, anything specific from you?
Yeah, I don't really have anything specific. I think I'm definitely going to watch the video that you upload just so I get another like refresher on everything, but
Yeah.
I think I'm fine.
Okie dokie. All right, Serena, sorry to cut you off. Back to you.
Okay.
We got a
Um,
few minutes yet.
who's susceptible to voice disorders?
We talked about that. It's pretty unusual for children to have voice disorders. The one example I showed was the girl with what's called dysphonia. Her speech is just not audible. I don't know if you've watched that.
I have, yeah. I think the 14-year-old.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Voice disorders are pretty unusual, like with children. They're not that common. With the possible exception, I think about this now, a girl with a really low voice or a guy with a really high-pitched voice, those can be considered voice disorders if they really draw a lot of negative attention to the person. But the voice disorders mainly occur in people as they get older who have yelled a lot, cheerleaders, coaches, singers who, abuse their voices, who are screaming into the microphone with all their might. And then a couple of years later, their voice, they can't hit high notes anymore. Does that help?
Yes.
The two issues in schools with children are mainly articulation disorders and fluency, which is stuttering. And then I also mentioned pragmatics. Had I admitted you when I talked about pragmatics? Lacey, Audrey, Serena?
no, I don't think.
I don't think
Okay,
so.
well, you're going to want to come back. You're going to want to go to YouTube and watch that, but very quickly, and then we're going to have to end because it's about 5 till 10 anyway. Although I can answer questions in the 10 o'clock session, I don't know that what I've got there is going to take the entire time. But anyway, pragmatics has to do with using language. It's not you've got a problem with your speech, and it's not that you have a language disorder in terms of you don't know how to express yourself. It has more to do with conversational skills. So I gave the example, if you've ever had somebody come up and talk to you and not angry or anything like that, just get like really close to you talking to you, and you just kind of back up because they're not using good pragmatics. Oh gosh, Olivia's really coming in late. She must think this is the other meeting. I gave examples like in conversation, you're trying to end a conversation and you keep kind of shuffling toward the door and picking your books up and you're leaving. And the other person just keeps talking and following you like they don't pick up on your nonverbals. Like, I got somewhere to go. We need to end this conversation.
Yeah.
Or someone who converses with you and never asks you a question. Probably everybody's talked to somebody that you get in a conversation and boom, they're off to the races and they never stop talking. And after a while, you're thinking, oh, I don't want to ask this person another question. You might think that about me right now. Does that help, Serena?
Yeah.
Pragmatics come up a lot with students with emotional behavior disorders and specific learning disabilities. Another example with EBD that I explained earlier, is not adjusting to your audience. In other words, the kid that comes into the classroom and the teacher says, "You're late. I want you to go get your math book and sit down and turn the page." And you get, you know, really vulgar thing that he might say, that all the kids might say when they're talking to outside of school, you know, but not to a teacher, because they know you don't say that to the teacher. But the EBD kid may not make any distinction whatever. That's why they have a hard time building relationships, because often they don't adjust how they speak to who they're talking to. And they'll talk to adults just like they're talking to another kid. That help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will upload this, but it'll be a little bit later because we got to go ahead and start the other meeting. All righty?
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody is coming into the wrong meeting. But anyway.
Is there a link for the 10 o'clock meeting? Because I didn't see one.
I thought I sent one out.
I don't think you did. I think you sent for this one and the one for the 8 o'clock one.
So if you check in your email of like one of our first meetings for like the 25th, it should be in there. It
Yeah,
should just
it's
be the same
link
link.
over
Oh,
and
it's the
over
same
again,
one?
because
Yeah.
it's a recurring meeting. Yeah, it's the same. You can use the same link over and over, but it looks
Okay.
like people are coming in. Hey, everybody, can you hear me? Anita?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I am going to end this meeting and start the regular meeting because I got a feeling people are at the regular meeting, not this review meeting, okay?
Okay.
Do you know how to get to the regular meeting? Same link as it was for the other two on Wednesday
Okay.
morning meetings at
Okay.
10. Okay? Everybody good with that? All right, I'm going to end this meeting since we're right at 10 o'clock and go to the other one. See you over there. Bye.